Welcome to the 13th grade, lesson 2. What is the current state of America? Let's get into it. Okay guys, thank you for joining us here at the 13th grade Financial Literacy 101. As we talked about, actually let's just kind of head to disclosure first, on this. And I covered this in the previous lesson. And let me just say this to you guys: if you're on social media or watching this, definitely get to our website, mandipity.com. This course is made for to be watching this particular lesson, but there's all kinds of like supportive stuff that you probably want to get in addition to that. If not, you'll probably be lost, because I'm going to be referencing things that you'll need to have access to, and it's on the website mandipity.com. And today we're not charging anything for that, so there's no reason you should be there. But as I mentioned before in lesson 2, what I was going to say is each one of these lessons are made to be done in order. So if you are in, you're looking at the title, if you're in lesson like 12, like go back and listen to 1 and 2 and 3, like don't skip it. You wouldn't get a book and then just flip to chapter 6, right? You start from the beginning and kind of read all the way through. So the idea is you're supposed to watch all the videos. So previous videos to this, putting up the disclosure, just a reminder, I am not your CPA, your attorney, your tax accountant. I'm none of those things. I myself go and seek out those professionals before I do anything, and I'm the ones, giving you this, this teaching here. So if I'm doing it, you should definitely do it. Don't take anything that I'm saying right now and say, hey, I got a good idea, and then go destroy your financial future by not getting a professional. You do something financially, with your money, talk to a financial advisor, talk to your CPA about the tax consequences, get an attorney to help you set up the entities or the businesses or whatever properly. Don't wing it. You'll thank me in the future. So without further ado, as I mentioned, this class is specifically designed to be simple. So what does that mean? Does that mean it's for third graders? No, it doesn't. It's actually made for everyone. However, what I will say to you, and I alluded this to in a previous lesson, is where this really stemmed from is people coming up to me asking me like, hey, you're young, like how did you get to to where you are? Currently, and let me just be clear with you guys, I'm never here to brag. I'm never here to be like, oh, look what I have. In fact, I just come back from a conference, and all the people around me are like, hey, you're doing well, like how'd you get to where you're going, help me out, whatever. It can make you feel pretty good about yourself. I go to a conference and I'm talking to like the big boys, and they're like you're pure peanuts, like they don't even give you the time of day because you're so like not even cool, right? And so it's all scale. People may think I'm doing well. I think other people are doing well. It's all scales, right? So, but the point is that at the age of let's call 38, able to hitting fire, at that point in time, I was driving a Ferrari, and then I changed it up to a Porsche GT3 RS, and then now I'm back in a Ferrari 488 because Ferrari is the best car ever made in manufacture, even though it's like a little bit scary to drive. It's just kind of raw and all that. But the point is like driving that around. I own a restaurant. I've had people come up to me. They're like, "Hey man, how did you do it? Like how did you you got a beautiful wife. Your kids seem to be put together. Like you're driving nice cars. Like how did you get to where you wanted to go?" And they're like, I want to get a BMW. And I'm like, wait. Like I didn't start out with, spending all my money, right? There's a pathway to get there. The point is I've had people come up to me and say, how did you get to where you are? And to be honest with you, I was always kind of shy to answer that particular question. And I was always kind of like, I don't know, like whatever, just, work and grind and, doing whatever, just kind of keeping it to my chest. But over the couple of years, because I've grown close to actually some of the employees and some of the people around me, I was like, hey, this is what I'm doing. What are you doing? And a lot of the people that I began to talk to, I know came from like very modest, situations, like paycheck to paycheck, maybe even falling behind here and there, helping out family, doing the right thing. And I was like, hey, if you should try doing this. Like, hey, why don't you try to get your own credit card? Like, let me help you. Let me find your first one. Let's start building your credit. And the person coming to me like, hey, I really want to buy a house. I know you're in real estate. It's like, okay, well, do you have a down payment? Where are you at? So really starting to just kind of mentor people. And these guys are in, and girls are in like, 20s, 21, 22. Actually, I've been mentoring a guy since he was 14. And so like he just actually bought his car at 16 years old for, I think it was 12,000, 14,000 or whatever. So the point is that I began to start talking to people and then seeing them do things and change their life and seeing that they're becoming to be good to go on a path of not following the circle of influence, not following what everyone else is doing, but actually making moves that I can look at these people and go like, no man, like in your late 20s, like you're going to be set up. Like you're not even making a whole lot of money in comparison to like what people think you need to do. Like you're not even doing, like you're doing well. So the idea is I developed this course specifically for the young person that isn't even thinking about money. There's a lot of things that are out there for people. Like if you're drowning in debt, like there's a lot of books out there. There's people that help you get out of debt. If you're already have tons of money and you're looking to like how to deploy that money to get a higher, to get higher return on investment, there's lots of videos out there that'll talk to you about what you can do to deploy that money differently. This was really made for that young person that's like, I got like my family's not going to teach me. Like my mom and dad are struggling. We're all struggling. Like I'm actually helping out my mom and dad. Like how do I get to where you are? Whatever. And I don't want to just tell them grind. And so, I got to where I'm at because of a mentor. So my idea is like, let me just mentor these people. I've seen some success. I found it to be like a really big sort of like fulfilling thing for me, like pursuing a life of fulfillment. Is this and helping out others? It just I like it. I like it. So the point is I was like, you know what? Let me actually just record something here and just talk about like how do you get to the steps for that young person. That said, if you are currently right now in your late 30s, 40s, 50s, you can still put the principles that we're talking about here in place. Like I started early 30s and was done in like 5 or 6 years, right? So you can start in your 40s, and I know people that are in their 40s and they're starting like and start your journey and have a better 50s and 60s and 70s, right? Actually, in fact, if you're living today and you're in your 40s, it's likely you could live till 100. Like you're still young, bro. Like you're still young, so you can still make moves. But the point is I made it specifically for that. So is it for the younger person? Absolutely. If you're watching this and you're not a young person and you're a mom or a dad and like you're kind of like, please give this to your child. Like go into their phone and subscribe to my channel or something like that. If you go to my channel, let me explain something to you. I post things like a Ferrari and our vacations and all that kind of stuff, not to brag, let me be clear with you, but I actually post that stuff is because that's what the young people need to see. If I come to the young person, I say to you like, hey, don't do any of these things and save all your money, invest and like eat crap and live uncomfortable, whatever, so you can be comfortable later on in life. Nobody's buying that. Nobody's doing that. Like people need to see the sexy abs and all of that, whatever, to be like, oh, let me get into the gym. I want to look like that. In the same way, they need to see the fruits of great sound financial principles, nice car, nice house, vacations, watch, whatever it is. They need to see that oftentimes. So all those things, not to brag, not to show, but is actually to inspire those that are young people to hopefully do those types of things. So who is this designed for? The average individual. If you're in debt or not in debt, it doesn't really matter. If you've never thought about money, this is a great course for you to start so you can start thinking about money. And if you're already in some struggling, you could probably say, okay, I need to probably do some things to get out of it, to correct myself, to get to a good baseline. But then how do I move forward to make sure that the going forward is a lot better than what it could have been. So without further ado, what are we going to cover? So very simple. Today we're going to talk about the state of America, but before that, let's talk about the 5 things that actually will affect your ability to reach financial freedom or to create generational wealth. Millionaire mindset. We're actually going to do a lot of that. Actually, for the first several lessons, you're going to be like, isn't this supposed to be a financial literacy course? Why is there so much conversation on everything other than like investing or whatever you'd expect? The reason is because it is actually your mindset that actually frames everything. If your mind isn't right, you don't like it. Just if it ain't right, you're just not doing it. It's like none of the other stuff matters. There's a certain way of thinking and processing that the millionaire, the way that they think and the way that they operate, they just operate at a completely different frequency. I would say to you, over the next, let's call it 8 weeks or whatever, however long this is, it could be 4 weeks, could be 15, I don't know. Over the next 8 weeks, my core job is to make you super pissed off, to challenge every single thing that you thought you knew, to break you down into like just nothing, so that way I can build you back up with the right principles, and so that you just are completely a different person. I need you to see that every single thing that you're basically being shown, taught, marketed to on a daily basis is all designed to do one thing, and that is to take the money out of your pocket and to put it into someone else's. That's how wealth is created. As brutal as it sounds, money comes from your pocket into someone else's. They become wealthy, you become poor. It's that simple. And so the idea is to help you better understand, like, how do you get more money, how do you make more money, but then when you get that money, how do you keep more of it, and how do you make it actually so other people give you their money, which is how you're going to create wealth. And it sounds crude because you're like, I don't want to hurt anybody, but it is what it is. By default, if you're keeping your own money, it's yours, right? You're not giving it away, and you did get it from somewhere. Whether you got it from a boss, your boss got it from a customer, that customer gave it to you. So you get the point. So I got to change your mind, and that's a big foundational part. The secondary to that, we're going to talk about just the kind of the building blocks, which is credit, income, saving and investing, and taxes. And what I'll say to you is, it's actually the strategic combination of those 5 things that can move you from nothing to something in a very short period of time. You have to, they all work together. Again, 30,000 foot approach, right? You have to create income, right, from your job, but in order to make that income really grow, you have to use leverage. And in order to use leverage, you have to have credit. And so income, with credit plus leverage equals more income that actually allows you to grow even faster. But when you start to deploy those resources into either saving or investing, the way that you invest is heavily dependent upon what the tax implications, and that constantly changes. So I want to teach you to think about that, and we'll go through some examples, but I'm going to show you, and it's going to piss you off, but I'm going to show you how, you could be a teacher in the way that you make income there, in the way that you'd employ as far as investment, or a doctor in the way you deploy, as a teacher or as a plumber, you could be far outweigh on an ROI and a generational wealth standpoint than the physician, simply because of the way that you're deploying the resources. So again, it's the strategic combination of both creating income, building great credit, using leverage. So income plus credit equals your ability to get leverage, taking that, investing and saving, and doing that all with the idea of taxes in mind. So I just gave you the whole plan, dude. I just gave you the whole thing. However, you're going to need a little bit to get there. So in order to do that, you got to have a mindset that allows you to pursue that. A mindset that allows you to pursue more income, a mindset that allows you to do things you need to do for credit that's completely opposite than everything you've actually ever been taught. A mindset that allows you to use leverage in the correct way, good debt versus bad debt, and then how to deploy that with taxes and savings, because while you should pay your fair share, you should only pay what the IRS wants you to pay, and that isn't probably necessarily what you're paying. So we'll talk about that more. Without further ado, what is America's current financial situation? And we go to this, and we're talking about America's financial situation because I'm not your CPA. I don't know you individually here. So I can't go in and say, well, this is where you are. This is what you've done. So let's talk about why you're doing those things or why you're thinking that way. So the best thing we can do, and actually to take it just personally, so you don't even just take it personally, because if I sat across to you and I started attacking you a little bit on your life's decisions, you probably would hate me for it. Let's talk about America as a whole, and let's see what people are doing. And this is kind of the first building block of the millionaire mindset piece, but let's see what America is doing, and let's reference and see if that makes like a lot of sense. So where do we get this from? It is from a 2018 study, believe it or not. and this slide will actually show you, this is actually when I started the course. So this study came out, I started actually building the course in 2019, and then COVID happened. I was busy with just all the businesses and everything else like that, and just really not wanting to go to market with something until it was 100% complete. And so, yeah, we're using a 2008 study. But what I'll say to you is that even though we're using a 2008 study, all of this still applies, because the principles that have made people wealthy in the 60s and the 70s and 80s and the 2000s is all the same. The bad decisions that people make in 2024, the same bad decisions we make in 2020, or 2000, because I know I was doing them, and in 99, because I was doing them, and they were doing the same in the 80s, because my parents made the same bad decisions. Like, the people, like, it's the same thing. Everything just kind of reinvents. There's really nothing new. It's all just a repeat. So we can learn from 18, we can learn from 2024, and actually if I had to study from 2024, it'd probably be the same. So without further ado, let's start off. 42% of Americans have no retirement savings whatsoever. And like, that's pretty jaw-dropping. And believe it or not, guys, this is an American condition. This is not a condition overseas. Now, one of the things I say is you should be traveling as much as possible, is because you will be exposed to other cultures that operate completely different than America. Different spending habits, different saving habits, different culture, whatever. 42% of Americans have no retirement savings whatsoever. That is an American condition by the way we live, or way that we are marketed to for this earn and consume lifestyle. So I just want to go over some couple stats, and these are probably going to be boring for a lot of you guys, but it's very, very important. Again, imagine we're sitting down going over your individual budget. It'd be the same thing, just going over figures. So starting here, just working left to right. 28% of people say that they indicate themselves as financially healthy. And so what financially healthy means, basically, in the standpoint of this study, is that like people feel pretty good about themselves. Exactly what it sounds like. Like people are like, hey, I'm financially healthy. I feel pretty good about where I'm at, and I think I'm whatever, heading in the right direction. I'm healthy, right? 55% of people say that they're financially coping. And financially coping would be like, yeah, I'm doing okay. Like, honestly, like things are tough. If I could replace the tires on the car, if something happens to the car and I gotta fix it, I get a medical bill, something like that, like I probably gotta throw that in a credit card. I may not be able to pay it. They might even be missing a payment here and there, but like maybe still within the grace period. But they're on the skin of their teeth, right? And then 17% of the people said that they were financially vulnerable. And those people are obviously, they're behind in their bills, they might be behind in rent, like they're not doing well. Of all of those people, 28, 55, and 17, they add all those together, 100%. Of all those people, 45% say they do not have enough savings to cover at least 3 months of living expenses. And so this will be kind of our first point, an aha moment, in the way society might say that they are doing okay financially, in the way that we are going to now define ourselves as being financially okay, is a little bit off. If I had the two numbers, 55 and 28, that is 83% of people that are out there are basically saying, I'm really great, or like I'm financially coping, I'm getting by. But 45% say they don't have savings to cover 3 months living expenses. Well, if you are just financially coping, you're getting by, like that's, I guess maybe you don't have the 3 months, but for us, we're going to start to define in our goals is financially coping, or financially stable is what I'll say to it. Financially stable is somebody that definitely has 3 months, probably 6 months of monthly baseline spending saved up. All right. And certainly if we're financially healthy, we're financially, we'll call it thriving, we're definitely going to have that. So maybe you're 3 months if you're just financially stable, and maybe you're 6 months to a year if you're financially thriving. To put in perspective for you, for generational wealth, you could never get income coming in from a 9 to 5 job source, and you would be perfectly fine for basically your entire life. But if you just lost all income, what would be in savings for liquid should always be, in our case, about 2 years. So put that in perspective for you. 37% of the individuals, so of the 28, 55, and 17, 37% said they are confident, or sorry, they are not confident they are on track to meet their long-term financial goals. So believe it or not, just 37%. So the 28% said, hey, I'm on track to meet my financial goals. Okay, then maybe that makes sense. 55% that say that they're financially coping, so they're just kind of getting by. And again, they probably don't have the 3 months of living expenses. Somehow there's a portion of those people, assuming that 17% of the financially vulnerable over here is basically saying, hey, I'm not there to my long-term financial goals. There's like 20%. So if I take 37 minus the 17 financially vulnerable, there's 20% left. There's 20% of the financially coping, or maybe the financially healthy people that designate themselves there, are saying that they're not confident that they're on track to meet their goals. Well, if you're not on track to meet your financial goals, unless maybe your financial goals are, going to be worth $10 million and you're financially coping, so maybe you're not on a path to do that. But if you're not on the path of reaching your financial goals, whatever they are, whatever the standards are, well, I don't how you can say you're financially coping or stability. So the point of the slide is that there's already just like a little bit of like, something's not adding up. So as we go into the numbers, this is where it becomes really, really interesting. And so basically the way these slides are set up is on the left, there's certain situations like spending was much less than their income. So there's a situation, and then you can see how a financially healthy, how a financially coping, and how a financially vulnerable person rated themselves. Like, did they meet that standard? Of the people that said they were financially healthy, spending was a little bit less than their income. So that's that first line right there, okay? Spending was about equal to their income, 11%. Spending was a little bit more than their income, 2%. So I want to pick on the 2% people, but it would probably work for the 11% people. Can you really say that you're financially healthy if you're spending your paycheck? So that would be the 11%. Can you say you're financially healthy if you're actually spending a little bit more than you're currently making? That's the 2%. I guess maybe there's some rationale that someone's like, well, I am spending more, but I'm about to graduate, so then I'll be set up. I'm not quite sure. Better would be spending was much less than their income, the 42%. That group, and only that group up here, I think is probably the one that you might want to consider financially healthy. Of the people said they were financially coping, so let's call that financial stability, like you're just kind of there, you're coping, you're not doing great, but you're there. 13% said they're spending more than their income, and 3% said they're spending much more. Again, the same thing. If the 13 and 3%, you're kind of delusional a little bit. Maybe you think you're doing okay because you're hearing your friends are also kind of struggling, so you think, well, I'm probably with everyone else or whatever. But obviously, they're not doing well at all. For this group, I would say 36% of the saying they're about equal. That would be the starting point of financially coping. And then the 39 and 9%, that's a little bit more in line. And actually, if you added up those numbers, like, let's add up 36, 30, 39, and 9, and let's add up 42, 45, and 11, there's not much difference between the people say they're financially healthy and the people that say they're financially coping, like as far as where they're spending in relation to their income. It's actually a very, very close difference, which is kind of interesting. Other people financially vulnerable, of course, they're all over the board. Interesting enough, and this is actually what I was talking about earlier, like you can actually not make a whole lot of income but do really well over time. Even those that said they were financially vulnerable, so they might be thinking, I'm not making any money. However, they're still spending less than their income, which is interesting. That's the 5%. Next up, what happens or what are people doing when they find themselves in trouble? And so when they find that spending, it has to be more than their income. So your check comes in, it's $1,000, your bills are $1,200. What are people doing about it? Of the people that are financially coping, let's focus on those. Let's assume all the financially healthy people, we don't worry about the 2% in the previous slide. They borrow money or were assisted by friends and family. So borrowing money, 18%. Borrowing money, took out a loan from a financial institution, 13%. Sold items for cash. Excuse me. I actually do like the sold items for cash. That actually could potentially make a lot of sense. But let's just be honest with one another. Let's not say you're financially coping if you're having to go to a lending institution to find money to pay for your regular bills, right? You never, ever, ever want to go to use a credit card, use a loan, payday loan, unsecured loan, whatever it is, to pay for the car to get fixed. You want to be paying for those things way ahead of time. I know it's easier said than done. Hopefully by the end of this course we'll change your mind. So if we go to the next slide, this is specifically about talking about how people are like just paying their bills on time. So if you identify yourself as financially healthy, financially coping, and vulnerable, like what exactly are you doing with your bills? And of course, those that are financially healthy, makes a lot of sense. They're saying 98% pay all their bills on time. Now, honestly, I don't know what's going on with the 2%. We won't pick on them. We think we've done that enough. But what are those? What are the? Either way, of the people that say they're financially coping or stability, what they're saying is they pay 65% say they pay all of their bills on time. 24% say they pay nearly all of their bills on time, or 8% most of them. Let's just put that in the same bucket. I mean, there is 32% they're not paying their bills, but they still say they're financially coping. The only way I could see that is potentially possible is if you were, let's say, you paid all your bills, your mortgage, your auto loan, you're paying minimum payments on your credit cards, you're doing all that, but you have that medical bill that pops up. Maybe you don't pay that on time, so you're paying that maybe over a couple of months. So you just kind of like, well, I'm paying most of it, but not all of them. But I still feel like I'm kind of making it work because eventually I'll pay that off, and then I'll be caught up with everything, and then something happens, and then I get backtracked or whatever. But like in that particular standpoint, but the point is let's just say those bills can't be paid over a certain period of time. If you're financially coping with something and you're not making payments all in time, how does that affect you? And I want you to kind of think about that. Next slide. So implications on retirement as it corresponds to paying your bills, or how you identify yourself as either financially healthy, coping, or vulnerable. And I just want to point this out, and this kind of alludes back to the 42% of Americans have no financial or no retirement savings whatsoever. Guys, I really want you to look at this slide, because even the people that say they're financially healthy, right? They're paying all their bills on time for the most part. They're spending less than their income is coming in for the most part, or a little bit less, or just right at. But even those individuals have $106,000 only in an account, like a long-term kind of savings account for some sort of type of retirement. Of those, like 60,000, so that's like employer 401k, or like an IRA would be like non-employer. Of those that are financially vulnerable or coping, obviously financially vulnerable have 4,000. So that's probably somebody that had like a 401k, maybe they put a couple of bucks in it, not a whole lot. They lost their job. They never really did anything. They're just not thinking about it whatsoever. Vulnerable. Financially coping, really not thinking about it either. 25,000 is not going to get you anywhere. Average income of household in America right now, I believe, is like 65,000. It's like the average salary, median salary. And so if you were to have that same salary in retirement, like even at $106,000, you don't even have 2 years. Like even if you really stretch that out, you'll Social Security, like maybe you get 3 years there. But the question is like, what are we doing for retirement? And so this is kind of a funny slide. And I chose this for a while, and I actually just was like, greeter at Walmart, and this popped up, and I threw it up. And then after a while, I started looking at this, and I was like, is that supposed to be Donald Trump? Like, that's kind of funny. So I don't want anybody to get political here, but I'll just say to you that it was not meant as a pro-Republican or pro-Democrat anything. It's just, I know it's a picture I chose. I Googled it. I guess I could use ChatGPT to get a better picture, but I just was like, show me, give me a picture or something that shows like what's America's retirement plan? Like what were we thinking about? Like what are people doing? And I don't know if it's gotten better or worse. I'm probably too young to do that, and it'd be too boring to look at those stats anyway. But what is America thinking? Like if we're kind of living paycheck to paycheck, and our bodies are going to start slowing down at I don't know, let's call it 65, 70, 75, and we don't have a retirement. We're not necessarily always paying our bills on time, even as it is. Like what are we going to do? And I think that's where everyone is so frustrated now with, if I look at go on social media, like everyone's complaining about, high inflation, high all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, what are we doing? So, and again, that's why we made this course, right? Is because, people aren't doing the right things, and it's not, and we're going to show you, but it's not necessarily about how much you make. It's about what you're doing with that money and your mindset that really affects your ability to have that financial stability. Over all these slides, though, one of the things that we did not talk about was income. And so I want you to just, if you got a pen and piece of paper there, if you got a phone, maybe just type in your phone or something like that. Just put up in your mind. But I want you to think about how much money do you think the financially coping person is making per year, the financially vulnerable person is making per year, and the financially healthy person is making per year. Like I want you to kind of put that in a perspective. Like, and I think it's going to be interesting as you're thinking about that. Hopefully you already have your number, but what I would say to you is that it's going to drastically change, probably based on, and this is a mindset piece, but probably based on where you are financially yourself, right? And so if you're making $40,000 a year and you're kind of in that financially coping, stable bucket or whatever, like you want to do better, which is probably why you're watching this course, watching me, my boring self-talk. You're probably like, if I was making $100,000, then I would really be at it. If you're making $20,000 or $30,000 a year, you're probably thinking like, man, if I could just get to like 60, like if I could just double that, like I would be so much better. Those are the financially healthy people. Like it's not the $30,000 a year people, it's the $75,000 people. And then the 50 people are like, well, I gotta make 100. And those that are making like 90 are probably like, man, if I could just get to like $150, like almost like doctor salary, like pharmacist salary, whatever, I would probably be in that financially healthy period. What I can tell you, leaving college early, my degree is in architecture. I got a bachelor's degree from the University of Florida. And I left early. I should have went to Princeton for my master's degree so I could be a practicing architect. But two things happened. One, I interned in an architecture firm, and I realized that is boring as hell. And I had friends that were in the construction field, and they were making a starting salary in 2004. They were making $44,000 a year. And I was thinking, like coming from serving at restaurants and things like that, making, $25,000, $24,000, I can tell you that I thought $44,000 is all the money that I'll ever make. I'll make more than my parents made growing up. I'll make double what I'm currently doing right now. And my life is probably pretty good. Like I had an apartment, I had a little beater car or whatever. Like, it was like if I just make double that, like I'll be set. What I can tell you is that the $44,000 lasted me about a year, and then I eventually then was like, okay, it's no longer $44,000. I then, I need to make more, so then I took a job that was about an hour drive commute. I gave up an hour of my time there and back, so 2 hours a day every day to make $65,000. Because I was like, if I could just get that extra grand a month, I would really be set up, and then I could be able to afford, whatever. And so I had $65,000. Actually, long story short, it went from $65,000. Then I was making $100,000, and then I was making $150. And there was a certain period of time that I was bringing in, a salary of like, $150, and getting bonus checks of like $10,000, $15,000 a month. I still couldn't make that work. And I know what you guys are thinking. You're thinking like, well, yeah, just because you're a privileged person or whatever, and like if you're making $150,000 and you can't make it work, you're just spending your money on dumb stuff. And to that I say, absolutely. You're correct. But I would say to you that the person that's making $40,000 a year can't make it work because they're spending their money on dumb stuff. Okay? The reason why you don't think so, those that are making 40,000 or 80,000 or 30,000, is because you've allowed your lifestyle to match your spending. If when I was making $44,000, I kept my $24,000 a year lifestyle, I'd have had money. If I kept my $44,000 lifestyle when I made 65 or 100, I would have been doing okay. But that never happens. It's always a perspective that you live up to because of your mind and the way you operate, because of society and your circle of influence and marketing and all the bad things, earn and consume lifestyle that's pushed into us every single day. Because of that, you make decisions that are surrounded by your income level. And even again, I know people right now that are making 7 figures a year and they're still would be like paycheck to paycheck because they're using all of it. Okay? And so it's all perspective. The shift is the decision to say, do I live off the $24,000 income while making the $44,000, do the things I need to do, take the uncomfortableness, take the ridicule from my friends and the people like, oh, you have roommates, like, oh, you're driving that stupid Honda, like, oh, take that pain, because you realize that banking 20 grand a month, after this course, you're going to understand, banking 20 grand a month or saving whatever you possibly can, and even doing that for 4 or 5 years, can revolutionize your financial situation. That then when you're in your 30s, while your other friends are going like, they're getting their BMW and they're getting their little 3,200 square foot house and they're making their payment, they're like, I'm feeling pretty good. You drive up in the Ferrari 488 and you own a restaurant and you own 25 rental properties and you travel 10 countries because you did things different earlier that impacted the later. So again, we'll get more into that. But so what was your number? What did you think? What did you think about? What was the most amount? Well, it doesn't matter because I already told you the rulings here and why that is. But let's look at the stats. Less than 60% of, or I'm sorry, 15% of those making less than $60,000 a year said they were financially healthy, which is what I just said to you. Like, it's almost like I knew the slide was coming up. Meaning that the individuals who are making, $20,000 a year, $40,000 a year, $55,000 a year, $59,999 a year, anyone less than $60,000, there's a percentage of those, and a decent amount. Like if you talk about the entire United States, like millions of people that are living that way, and they're like, yeah, I'm doing financially well. Probably because those are also the individuals that are living behind their means. Remember the slides that we went, and maybe you should go back, like pause and then go back, right? And look at that, like they're paying all their bills on time. They're spending less than what they currently make, even though they're only making $55,000. Could be living in different areas, but all of those things are decisions that you control. You control all the parameters, right? However, of those that are making $100,000 or more, remember the 7-figure guy that I told you that's still not living paycheck to paycheck. Myself, in my late 20s, early 30s, before I met Claire, spending over $100,000. I mean, like $250, right? Are still sitting there saying they're financially coping. They're financially vulnerable. They probably are still people that don't have 3 months of salary, and that's the person that's driving the Jaguar, that's living in the beautiful $500,000 home, that's going on vacations, and then, they're working for Google or whatever, and then Google decides to lay off 10,000 jobs, and they're out of the job, and they're homeless 6 months later because they got no money saved. And that's the person. That's the person. We're not going to be that person. So the point is that this is why we create this course, and I'm going to keep saying this over and over and over again. But we created this course because if you make $60,000 a year, you're only 15% likely to be okay. But even if you make almost 2 times that, $100,000 a year, you're only 50% likely to be okay. you could still be struggling, right? And I will say to you is that even those who are financially healthy, based on the stats that I just said to you, 42% of Americans don't have retirement. The 106,000 that they have in their retirement savings on average. There's the 2% that weren't even necessarily paying all their bills on time. There was a big chunk of people that actually were spending about what their money coming in. All those people that are financially healthy, all of those, when you leave this course, you will understand that those people should be in a full panic mode. Until next time, we will be getting into exactly why that is. We're going to leave it there. This was boring. As I mentioned to you, next lesson is when we get into the fun stuff. Until next time.